Yesterday at St. James Cathedral, we had a very beautiful celebration of ordination. That is when a man becomes a priest, the beautiful sacrament of holy orders. And the two men that were ordained, I know both of them. One is Father Chris Dorsey. He grew up in Melbourne. His mother is actually the religious ed director in the parish there. And he went to UCF. So when I was out there as campus minister, I got to know him. He was very faithful about coming to Mass every Sunday, and so it's nice to see him going further on his journey. Father Josh Swallows, also I've known for about 11 years. I worked with him for 3 years. He was the lay coordinator of campus ministry when I was there before he went to the seminary, and then he went to the seminary in 2008. He's coming back to us. He'll kind of have a little bit of finishing school here, I think, at Annunciation for a couple of years. He'll be joining us in mid-June. We'll look forward to his arrival as well. He's a graduate of Lake Howell High School and grew up here in Castleberry. So two gentlemen who are from our local area, from our diocese, which is really a blessing to see, once again, how their journey has brought them to this particular place. I found it to be a very unique day, though, for me, a unique ordination, because it fell on the anniversary of my own ordination. So it was really kind of special to be there at St. James Cathedral in the place where I was ordained 17 years ago. Part of the ordination rite is when all of the priests, following the bishop, lay hands upon the man who is being ordained. Similar to the way in which at every Mass we lay hands down upon the bread and the wine, that they may become the body and blood of Christ through the working of the Holy Spirit. So in the same way, each one of the priests comes forward and they lay hands upon the one being ordained. In other words, bringing down the beauty, the presence of the Spirit. It's part of an ancient and sacred ritual. And as I stood there watching other priests come by, I kind of got a chill. The song was the same that it was 17 years ago. And I really just thought about my own priesthood and how blessed it really has been. Of those 17 years, I've spent 11 of them here at Annunciation. And I'm very grateful to each of you for being a part of that journey, because it's been really a wonderful journey. As the sequence for Pentecost concluded, "Give joys that never end." Bishop Dorsey quoted it that day at my ordination, that we may have joys that never end. And the gift of priesthood, saying yes to God at ordination, was certainly something that has given me a life that is God's call and joys that never end. Always very interesting, never know what a day is going to bring. But I had very much of a God moment there at the ordination. Just that moment of realizing how the Lord touched my own life, how He's touching the lives of these two young men who will serve our diocese for the rest of their lives. So really to have that moment of an experience of God, an experience of the Holy Spirit. It's really how I felt when I mentioned I kind of got that chill. Maybe you get it when you see something very magnificent and beautiful. If you go to the Grand Canyon for the first time and you stand there and you look and you say, wow, God created this. It's kind of an action of the Spirit that comes to us to recognize God's presence in our lives. Maybe you really feel the Holy Spirit in a moment where you look into the eyes of your child or your grandchild for the first time. And just think of how you carry that child for 9 months. You wait for their arrival, and all of a sudden you see the baby, and it's just that moment where you kind of melt. There's many extraordinary moments that God touches our lives in the movement of the Spirit. After all, as we say in the Creed, the Lord, the giver of life. So any time that life is being lived, that we are taking from God the beauty of what He has given to us in our own humanity, mixing it with His divinity, it's a moment of the Spirit because it's a life-giving moment. I mentioned the ordination, mentioned birth, mentioned other things, ways in which we may see God's presence, movements of the Spirit. They are all extraordinary. We don't go to the Grand Canyon every day. But there's also times where they're a little bit more ordinary. I'll tell you first, though, that for the apostles on Pentecost, it was pretty extraordinary. It was pretty extraordinary for them because here Jesus promised that the Spirit was going to come. Lo and behold, the Spirit came. And they spoke with languages that they had never even dreamed of speaking. They were inspired to go to places that they never thought, being simple fishermen, that they would journey and travel to. But they were open to God's presence. They were open to the life of God in their own life, and that's a wonderful meeting of the Holy Spirit. It was extraordinary because it's really the beginning of the church as we know it today. The beginning of the church which spread the good news throughout all the world. But there were other times too that the Holy Spirit had come about and visited the people in the Scriptures. In Genesis, we hear about the Spirit looming over the waters. We can hear about prophets who came and they were inspired by the Holy Spirit to change the hearts that were very dark. We also know that the Holy Spirit was present at the Annunciation, that it was Mary who was open to God's movement in her life in order to say yes to the gift of salvation. So here again, extraordinary ways. But we don't always necessarily have to find the Spirit in the highs of life, in those extraordinary, magnificent, spectacular times. He's also present in the ordinary. The Holy Spirit is present with us in the everyday. To use an example, on 4th of July, we go to watch fireworks. And you see fireworks, and they're just beautiful. And again, maybe you get that chill, or you get that feeling of, wow, this is just life at its best. But every day, look up at the sky. Look up at the sky and see how God paints the sky a blue that only God can paint the sky in that particular hue. Think of the beautiful sunsets that we have night after night here in Central Florida, or the sunrise, or maybe just the very ordinary of the sun lighting up the sky in your life. Has God ever disappointed you one morning when you woke up? No, He's always brought light to our day. Those are ordinary ways that God is touching our lives each and every day. The Holy Spirit is present to us today. He brought us here together in this moment in time around His holy and sacred table. Maybe you're here by choice, but God inspired and moved you to be here today on this holiday weekend when maybe you had a lot of choices to make. God will inspire you, the Holy Spirit, on the way out of the parking lot. When you're kind to the person who's in front of you and you let them go ahead so we're not fighting over things. That's an act of kindness. The Spirit is there. The Holy Spirit is present when someone perhaps wrongs us. When someone maybe does something that is offensive to us. But then they come and they ask for forgiveness, and we grant it. When we give forgiveness to another person in maybe just the simplest ways, not maybe a big life-changing moment in a relationship, but rather in just even telling one of our children, accepting their apology, and saying, it's going to be okay, we have a fresh start. That's the Holy Spirit in the ordinary, in the everyday. Maybe the Spirit will come to you today and the smile of another person, in feeling affirmed for who God made you to be, blessing you in a way in a relationship or with a sense of joy, maybe with a sense of peace, maybe with a sense of hope for tomorrow. The Spirit moves in our life in many different ways. If we don't stop and take a moment, though, to see how He is truly the Lord, the giver of life, well, then we're going to miss out on a lot. God is constantly at work creating for us. Creation was not a one-time event. It is happening every moment of every day. Every second, God continues to be dynamic in our world. Are we able to recognize him? Are we able to see him? Because if we do, we too may be able to experience that final line in the sequence today. And I hope that you do. I hope you do take time today to find where the Spirit moved in your life. Because when you do, you will find, not just on an ordination day or a wedding day or a birthday or the birth of a child or a visit to the Grand Canyon, you'll find in the everyday there are joys that never end.